Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.
Hello again, everyone, and thanks for being here for this Sunday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy. Up first, fire danger. Still some areas of high danger out here over the Yukon Delta, as well as the Copper River Basin, and up in toward the north side of the eastern Alaska Range through here. More widespread area through the central and interior back toward the border. There was some scattered areas of extreme mixed in with that. Moving on to the satellite imagery for yesterday, a lot of clearing down here over Bristol Bay and across the Kenai Peninsula. Upper level low centered right about there near the Selawik Valley, Selawik Valley, circulating, producing a trough, a lot of clouds here and some moisture in the form of showers scattering out down across the Yukon Delta. And system here moving eastward, circulating clouds and showers into the northern Panhandle. The southern area is cleared out. Not a lot going on over the Bering Sea. Some clouds trying to advance up toward the peninsula and the eastern Aleutians. Kind of couldn't get too much farther than that position there, with just scattered clouds over the northern Bering becoming more extensive and more lower on flying conditions down toward Adak on out to Shemya. And today, not a lot different out in that area. We've got this low now pulled back to the west a little bit there, the circulation center, not too far away from Point Hope and Cape Lisburne, and that swinging another batch of moisture and clouds down into the Bering Strait to St. Lawrence Island and the Seward Peninsula, and another trough right through here, not really moving a whole lot. You can see that band of clouds right through here. This one coming in almost like a zone of convergence going on right there, with the thunderstorms today breaking out along and east of that line in across the central interior there, Tanana Valley, along the Alaska Range over into northwest Canada around Dawson and those areas. Otherwise, southeast coast, dry day today with a fair amount of sunshine in areas, but clouds are advancing northward here. Actually, kind of a very weak trough right through here, possibly brought some isolated showers maybe to the Queen Charlottes, and then that's going to slowly lift northward this evening, and then this will eventually catch up, that frontal system there. Otherwise, high pressure, 1017 millibar high over the Gulf of Alaska, northern Gulf, not too far from Middleton Island. Light winds all along the coast there, and that extending into the Kenai Peninsula with a partly to mostly cloudy day from Kodiak Island up into the interior, picking up some showers here over the interior, especially in the afternoon with the thunderstorms breaking out along in advance of this trough axis, or at least to the east of it, on over to the border. Still not nearly as extensive as it was on Friday, but about the same as yesterday. And then general area low pressure here, both at the surface and aloft, back over the northwest part of the state, keeping it pretty chilly and unsettled there again, with showers extending southward into the Yukon Delta. And again, this moisture rotating southeastward there. Showers, rain, fog, and drizzle, or any one of the four, occurring from probably Point Hope all the way down to St. Lawrence Island, cutting off just low clouds and fog out here over the Bering Sea, with some clearing again over Bristol Bay. And looks like Unalaska Island was cloudy much of the day. Maybe Nikolsky got in on this little bit of clearing here, but then back into the clouds or the Pribilofs, and a really weak trough right through here, extending from a very weak low over the Russian Far East. Probably brought some IFR and drizzle into the far western Aleutians, but really high pressure holding out there, and that will continue through tonight. That trough will advance eastward here, bringing taking the low clouds with it, and the drizzle probably staying west of the Pribilofs though, but could pick up a little moisture here. That'll continue over the St. Lawrence Island area as the original batch pulls into the Seward Peninsula. And this trough still stationary right through here from the central north slope around Umiat Airfield southward, give or take maybe clipping Anatuvik a little bit there through the eastern Kobuk Valley, western Koyukuk. It's kind of a narrow band of enhanced showers along that, all the way down to the Kuskokwim Mountains there and toward Kuskokwim Bay, and a narrow area of partly cloudy skies there for the Yukon Delta, on up and then back around to the western Arctic coast. Low clouds and fog though for the central and eastern coast. Winds easterly 10 to 15, maybe up to 20, but more like 10 to 15. But those will increase over the next couple of days up there, especially on Tuesday on the east side. Otherwise, the decreasing thunderstorms this evening, especially after midnight. Variably cloudy here, southern Alaska, south of the Alaska Range. Possible areas of fog out along the coast and into Prince William Sound. This front catches up with that trough there. Anyway, rain spreads up into the southern Panhandle late tonight and pushing northward, possibly reaching this far north by tomorrow morning, or it could be a little bit farther to the south. I don't think it'll be any farther north or northwest than this position by tomorrow morning. And otherwise, staying dry through tonight for the North Gulf Coast. No change out over the Bering Sea, high pressure south of the Aleutians, light westerly flow, which tomorrow will push that trough right up to near the coast. So you get back into the drizzle threat, fog threat, definitely cloudy. St. Lawrence Island back down toward Makoriak, and even the Pribilofs now, that'll slip on in and some west-northwest breezes there. Otherwise dry to the southeast with still considerable low clouds, fog, especially here on the windward side of the Alaska Peninsula and probably back to the eastern Aleutians. Weak trailing edge bringing in a little bit of drizzle and fog to the central Aleutians. Nothing significant though. And another batch of moisture with a warm front trying to push into the Shimei and Attu area. Otherwise, we've got, looks like a mostly sunny day here. Kind of a battle going on, northwest winds or northeast winds. So the east side of Kodiak Island, say from Chiniak Marmot Bay up along Fognak Island, kind of under the influence of either one, but definitely the southern part of the island there, Akiak, on down along the south side of the Alaska Peninsula. Sand Point looking pretty good tomorrow because see some sunshine. Low pressure just to the east though, and again that front moving northward very slowly eastward. Kind of more of a pull back to the north and northwest here, so rain and small craft advisories for the eastern North Gulf Coast in the forecast for tomorrow, with rain chances increasing in the afternoon for the southern Kenai Peninsula. Definitely see some rain Cordova, and that'll slip on up into Prince William Sound, mainly up the west side there and toward Whittier. And Yakutat looks wet as well as Juneau, changing to showers from about Elfin Cove on down to Prince of Wales Island as that front nudges eastward. Mostly dry, scattered thunderstorms again over the eastern Tanana Valley, 40-mile country down to about the Alaska Range, and then much more isolated across the Copper River Basin, maybe just some scattered isolated showers. Mostly sunny though up to the Brooks Range. That trough still kicking off some showers there over the western interior from the Wainwright area southward, angling back in toward maybe Dillingham, Koliganek, and those areas. But Iliamna, Southern Cook Inlet looking really good. And then on Tuesday, that front pushes well up into Canada, weakens, low pressure back to the west here. Westerly flow turns southwest, so a series of surges of moisture will be rolling into, looks like at least for Tuesday, the southern southeast coast. We'll see the brunt of it with less action to the north, but definitely mostly cloudy. A chance of showers, Juneau, Haines, on over to Yakutat. Maybe a dry day actually for Yakutat here to Cordova with these showers now up over the Wrangell Mountains, risk of a thunderstorm. And the front pulling back to the west, so a band of rain probably coming westward across the Kenai Peninsula, Manouskas, the Sitna Valley, and enhancing as it comes up on the east side of the western Alaska Range, also up toward Denali. Could get some moisture north of the mountains there possibly with a band of showers and convection back to the northwest there to the central Arctic coast. Otherwise dry, higher pressure, partly to mostly sunny skies. Inland areas, a lot of clouds, and a lot of low clouds and fog here along the coastline and out into the southwest Bering Sea. Another trough, very weak, spreads into the Bering Strait areas with a chance of fog and showers. Drizzle, Alaska Peninsula, especially on the Bering Sea side, a breakout here, and then southwesterly flow pulling surges of moisture up from the western Pacific into the western Bering Sea. And for temperatures this afternoon, upper 50s, lower 60s, south central Alaska, 65 at Gulkana. And for the southeast coast, mid 50s to lower 60s. There's Klawock and Craig with 62 and 59 Skagway, 55 Elfin Cove, Skagway, Petersburg at 57, 55 at Cordova. And up in the Tanana Valley, lower to mid 60s there with 67 at Fairbanks. Same thing at Eagle, one above that at Fort Yukon, and a 62-degree reading both at Arctic Village and Bettles, 56 Anatuvik, and we've got 35 there in a place formerly known as Barrow, Alaska, 47 degrees though at Atchison, and lower 40s here for Kotzebue Sound with 55 at Ambler, lower 50s Yukon Delta Coast, just 43 in Nome and Savunga, and up to 60 though in Bethel, 62 McGrath. Pribilof's upper 40s, mid to upper 40s Central, Aleutians, Adak and Atka, mid 50s Alaska Peninsula, and upper 50s to the northeast. Lows for tonight, lower 50s, mild there for the Yukon Flats, and 45 to 50-ish all the way out, and then you're definitely into the 40s out toward the coast, lower 40s along the coast and the Bering Sea and the Aleutians. Looks like everybody's staying above freezing now, even on the western Arctic coast, mid 30s for the lows, lower 50s for the Panhandle. Highs for tomorrow into the 40s to near 50, into the 50s over the North Slope. Mid 70s here, 76, 7, 8, 9, maybe even 80 degrees showing up places like Chuck-Itzig. Possible tomorrow with 70s down to the Alaska Range. Looks like temperatures pushing possibly in the lower 70s for the Sitna Valley and the Copper River Basin. Upper 50s for the Panhandle, 40s out west. Flying weather, IFR, lots of it over the Bering Sea with light winds, low clouds, fog. Pribilofs north of the Aleutians, though, right up to the coastline, Bering Strait, western Arctic coast pushing inland a little bit, and conditions coming down. Again, that front rotating back to the northwest, so IFR goes rolling into the North Gulf Coast, Cape Dakataga into especially western Prince William Sound, southwest of Kodiak. VFR for the Panhandle, some scattered thunderstorm action in this area, and widespread IFR possible. It won't be just solid like this, but there'll be a pretty good chance of it anywhere from St. Lawrence Island southwestward to the Aleutians. Anatuvik and Adigan looking both pretty good tomorrow, VFR for both passes. Lake Clark, Merrill, and Rainy also will be wide open. No chance of any marginal VFR at all for those passes, and even for Windy and for Isabel and Mentasta, both VFR. And Tanita, also VFR. For the Portage Pass, VFR to start with, but watch for those conditions to come down later on in the day. And for Chilkoot and White, VFR. Looking at the freezing levels here, cold pool, upper level low, trough, weakening into trough gradually over the next couple of days, keeping the 2,000 to 4,000 foot cold pool there over the northwest coast, kind of extending down to 4,000 feet, Kodiak and the Alaska Peninsula. Higher pressure here, western Canada, 10,000 feet, ridging into the eastern interior, and then back down to 4,000 feet over the Aleutians. Icing, possibly some scattered areas of light mixed icing here through the interior with that trough, and some more back to the northwest with the main low. And then the moisture spreading light to isolated moderate rime icing and across the Panhandle late tonight, early tomorrow, spreading northwestward to the North Gulf Coast and Prince William Sound. And upper level low, southwest of the Panhandle there, main jet cutting in south across the Queen Charlotte's, one branch breaking off like this, with only 30-knot winds through the central interior, 9,000 feet, strongest winds off the southeast coast, 20 to 30 knots here. Coming back around 25, Kodiak Island, 20 knots, Alaska Peninsula, light and variable over the interior, westerlies for the Bering Sea. And about the same flow here at 3,000 feet, 20 to 30 knots, 35 out over the Gulf of Alaska, maybe up to 25, Kenai Peninsula, 20 for Kodiak, northwest 10 to 20 for the Alaska Peninsula, light and variable interior to the Arctic coast. Turbulence-wise, those northeast winds, Kodiak Island, occasional light to isolated moderate chop, south side of the Alaska Peninsula, over to about Sand Point, and then with the system coming in, southern southeast coast, Dixon Entrance, all the way up to just south of Elephant Cove. And after the break, I'll be back with the marine forecasts.
A gust of wind, a rise in temperature, a drop in humidity. These changes in the weather might have little effect on our daily lives, but during a wildfire, they can mean trouble. When unexpected weather changes cause a wildfire to shift directions or become more intense, the consequences can be devastating. Perhaps nobody knows this better than Bob Salee. At 17, he was trained to be a smoke jumper for the U.S. Forest Service, one of the firefighters who parachutes onto the scene of a wildfire. He had no idea that on his very first jump, he would face one of the most infamous firefighting tragedies in U.S. history. A small fire was burning in Man Gulch, a steep valley in the northern Rockies. Bob was one of 15 smoke jumpers set in to put it out on a very hot, very dry day in 1949.
When we got there, the fire was about 30 or 40 acres burning along the top of the ridge. You could see flames in a few places, but mostly it was just smoke. It didn't look like it was going to be a very tough situation at all.
But without warning, a change in the weather turned a fire that was manageable into a monster. Historians have speculated that a thunderstorm passed over and the updrafts that it generated sent the fire roaring into the gulch. Bob and his team were suddenly facing an enormous and deafening fire.
The fire was probably 50 or 75 yards behind us. It was coming really fast.
With the fire racing toward them, Bob and his friend, Walt Rumsey, desperately looked for a way out. In the smoke and the chaos, somehow they stumbled upon a path which led them up the gulch.
When I got to the top, there was a lot of smoke and a lot of heat, and I wasn't sure whether I was going to make it or not.
But amazingly, Bob and Walt survived. 12 smoke jumpers and a forest ranger were not so fortunate.
I guess we were just the luckiest people alive that day, and the other fellows ran out of luck.
The Man Gulch incident remains one of the most notorious fire weather disasters. But deadly shifts in the weather are still surprising fire crews today. Arizona, June 26, 1990. Firefighters battling the so-called Dude Fire were shocked by unexpected winds. The strong winds sent fire spreading rapidly in all directions. 6 firefighters were fatally trapped in its flames. 4 years later in Colorado, sudden strong gusts struck again, killing 14 firefighters on the South Canyon fire. There was no chance for escape when 200-foot flames blew straight for them. These are the stories that wildland firefighters think of with dread. They show just what can happen when you don't know what the weather around a fire is going to do.
Weather is a key component to fire spread, and the firefighters on the ground are obviously concerned about what the fire is going to do in any particular time.
So today, when a wildfire breaks out, even the most experienced firefighters won't make a move without consulting a key member of their team, the Incident Meteorologist, or IMET. IMETs are the National Weather Service specialists who are the on-the-ground weather experts for firefighters. There are only 63 of them in the country. The IMETs are there because the fire crews don't want to find themselves in the path of a fire while they're trying to fight it.
They're there to watch out for the safety of the crew.
When wildland firefighters are called into action, an IMET is assigned to join them at the fire camp. The IMET sets up a small weather office on the scene and will be on call 24 hours a day as the fire rages. Passing on forecasts to the firefighting team so they can plan their attack.
It's cool and moist under that.
When the IMETs get up in front of the group to give weather briefings, everyone pays attention.
There's the very real possibility that some of those eyes you look into in the morning shift briefing, if you make the wrong call, they might not be there the next morning.
With lives on the line and time working against them, IMETs have to make some grueling decisions that can mean the ultimate success or failure of a firefighting mission.
The job is a lot like what I would liken to a place kicker on a football team. There are certain times when you have to come out and do exactly what it is you're trained to do and do it exactly right because the game is on the line.
IMET John Saltenberger speaks from experience. He had to step up when he was called to Washington State in 1991. The city of Spokane was surrounded by wildfire.
On the approach into the Spokane airport that evening, I remember looking out the window of the aircraft and seeing fires all over.
Northeastern Washington was under siege by a violent windstorm. 62-mile-per-hour wind gusts had sent an astonishing 92 fires raging into several neighborhoods. More than 100 homes were left in ashes, and one woman died trying to outrun the flames. The community was devastated and terrified by the thought of even more destruction. But to everyone's relief, the winds soon calmed down, and the fires calmed down too. Mark Labhart was the incident commander in charge of the firefighting team.
We were starting to get a handle on the fire. I was starting to feel a lot better until John came up to me and said, "Mark, I need to talk to you."
It was very bad news. John was predicting another windstorm, just as ferocious as the first one.
I think my heart just sank at that point in time.
The winds, if they came as forecasted, would certainly mean new dramatic flare-ups in the fire.
The potential for a major catastrophe was in the making.
At the time, it was only my second year as an incident meteorologist. I didn't want them to think that this was just some rookie crying wolf in the wind. I wanted them to take quite seriously the information that I had.
We were literally making million-dollar decisions on a forecast that was from a person that was fairly new.
But Mark was convinced that John's forecast was right on. He contacted the governor, who declared a state of emergency and authorized the fire team to rush in dozens of extra crews. They would be in position to protect homes if the fires got bad again. And then, everyone waited.
My stomach was turning. I slept very little.
If the winds actually materialized, it was time and money well spent. If the winds didn't materialize as forecasted, then they would look rather foolish.
It was a risk, you bet.
At first, nothing happened. But then, as John had predicted, the winds started picking up, and soon intense fires were being stirred up again by an all-out windstorm. This time, with the extra crews in place, not one more life or home was lost. And John, the rookie incident meteorologist who made the conclusive forecast, was a hero.
There was a lot of high fives for John. There was a lot of pats on the back for John.
When you're able to forecast those things and they take action on it, everybody looks good.
In response to a recent surge in catastrophic wildfires, the National Weather Service, part of the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, has doubled the number of incident meteorologists on staff. IMETs are also trained to go to the scene of other incidents that could need on-site weather information, oil spills, search and rescue missions, or terrorist attacks.
Welcome back. Small craft advisories here. Out along the coast, except for the extreme south coast, they'll be later tonight and early tomorrow, and then coming down to 20 knots as that front moves inland or northeast and north. And south becomes southeast up to 30 knots. Strongest winds just shy of gale force here for the north coast. Small craft advisories for Clarence Strait. And then for Tuesday, south 20 northerly canal. Lighter winds, south 20 knots here on the south coast. Southeast on the north side. And light southeast breezes for Clarence Strait on up into Stevens Passage and Frederick Sound. For Prince William Sound tomorrow, variable to south at about 10 knots, light variable winds northern Cook Inlet, and then some northwesterly south of the Forelands at about 10 knots. Pick up to 15 knots there for Ketchimack Bay going north here for the Barren Islands down the east side of Kodiak, northeast 15, western North Gulf Coast. Small craft advisories, 25 knot winds with 6-foot seas for the east side. And then for Tuesday, those come down easterly, 15 knots for the entire North Gulf Coast and the Barrens. North down to 15, east side of Kodiak, variable 10 knots there for Shelikof Strait, up to 15, Ketchimack Bay out of the southeast. Cook Inlet now, southerly winds in the afternoon up to 20 knots with 5-foot seas. Bristol Bay northwest of 20 tomorrow, turn north 25, so we've got some small craft advisories going there from Sitkinak to Castle Cape, and also here on the Bering Sea side of the Alaska Peninsula, northwest 25. Then for Tuesday, the small craft advisories move into Bristol Bay, west 25 knots turning northwest 25, Sitkinak to Castle Cape, west-northwest 20 knots for the peninsula. Out over the Aleutians, eastern Aleutians, light variable winds. South of Unalaska Island, kind of a more discernible northwest direction, but still light, really light variable winds going on. AKwx eastward, and then starting to pick up to 20 knots out toward Kiska Island to Shimian at 2. Then for Tuesday, southwest 20 continue. Southwesterlies, not too bad though, 15 knots there. South or variable south of AKwx, variable winds, and then they turn westerly for Unalaska Island 15. Southwest coast, south of Nunivak Island, small craft advisories tomorrow. Northwest 25 knots, 6-foot seas. Otherwise southwest 15. Northern Bering Sea to St. Matthew Island, St. Lawrence Island, west 15 for the Pribilofs. On Tuesday, southwesterlies turn west 20 knots all along the coast there, so picking up a little bit. Seas still pretty good, 4 to 6 feet, 15 for the Pribilofs, 3-foot seas there. And for the eastern Beaufort Sea coast, brisk wind advisories tomorrow coming up out of the east to 25 knots, dropping back to 15 for the central coast and down to 10 knots here on the west side. And then for Tuesday, we've got small craft advisories now coming in from Wales up to Cape Thompson with 5-foot seas, southeast 20-ish here from Cape Thompson to Cape Beaufort, then kind of a more light variable condition there on the west side. East 15, central Arctic coast 25 to 30 knots now, strongest demarcation point, so definite increase in the winds there along the east side. And for tonight, we've got rain later on tonight, spreading into the panhandle. There are small craft advisory winds coming up with, especially along the coast, possibly Dixon Entrance, spreading northwestward. Fair here, variable clouds, southern Alaska, northern panhandle, decreasing thunderstorms there, central and eastern interior, showers back to the west with a couple of weak troughs. And for tomorrow, that front spreads rain northward and westward to the North Gulf Coast, Kenai Peninsula. A little bit of an increase in the winds, showers mainly on the west side, isolated thunderstorms again, and front moves inland the weekends.
These forecasts
The
are
next
to
day.
be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.